Super Plus.
Greetings and welcome to the Hills of Steel 1 Tank Breakdown series. I'm your host Andrew and we're back with another tank in the series. This time we're taking a look at another one of our arachnid friends, Arachno. A relatively straightforward tank to play, unlike its bigger older sibling, the Scorpion, which does a lot of melee damage and poison. The Arachno is a long range type tank. It is slow, powerful, and can pack a punch. As you can see, a number of skins are available, and as always it comes with the standard boosters, as well as the capabilities of leveling up through cards and coin. The Arachno has relatively decent amount of armor, it has a great gun which makes it very strong, but you'll notice that the engine is quite low. This means that there are a number of difficulties when playing Arachno, however it is a relatively straightforward tank to play. Don't forget, in this latest update you can also update the character customization, so make sure to do that too. Let's now jump into some action with Midsummer Siege. So as we've said, there's a number of things that make Arachno a very simple tank to play. But there are a number of disadvantages to this. The attack is a laser cannon. You'll notice that when we tap the button, sometimes it doesn't fire off a single bolt. What has to happen is that you have to hold on it in order to get the first shot to fire off. You can then hold on the button to consecutively fire a handful of lasers. These laser bolts are incredibly strong and in most cases can take down a lot of tanks very quickly. As we said, the engine is quite low, which means that when walking you're very slow, which means you can be vulnerable if you find yourself in a bad spot. When firing the laser cannon, you'll also notice that the recoil is not very big, which means that the shot stays relatively straight, but it also means that you're going to have some difficulty firing both up and downhill. Out of all the tanks, Arachno may be the tank that takes the terrain into the most consideration, because without placing yourself in the right spot, you either fire too high or fire too low. It needs to be just right for you to be able to hit the tanks. So, although it is very simple for beginners to play, a simple walk and shoot type tank, it will be the one that people will need to practice the most in order to figure out exactly where on the terrain you'll want to stand. Of course, with Arachno being slow, it can also take a little time to get into the right positioning, which we'll find out more about later in the video. However, because Arachno is slow, can only fire in a straight line, it does not mean that Arachno is weak by any means. You'll see that we're able to pack a big punch here. Most tanks go down in one, possibly two hits. And because it is a straight line fire, you can take advantage of the long range as well, by sitting on the left hand side of the screen, and as soon as you see tanks on the right, fire off at the comfort of a large, safe range. Although Arachno is quite tanky, you still may not want to be pushing into things, because you will take a good amount of damage. An advantage of Arachno is that because the weapon is so strong, you can take advantage of a couple of things against bosses. One, use the large range to take them down from a distance and in safety, or push right in, hold on that button, and clear them out very quickly. So, when playing Arachno, it's not difficult to figure out what it is you need to do. You move, you fire, and position correctly. So in most cases on maps like this that are relatively flat, Arachno should be perfectly fine. You may move slow, but you'll hit hard and you can use the distance to be able to take advantage of the tanks. But the question is, what happens when you find yourself into particular positions that aren't too good for Arachno? And of course there is the question of what happens if there's multiple at once, and what happens if there's air units. When there's multiple at once, as you can see when we push right in, we do take a relative amount of damage, so it's not particularly ideal. and if the terrain isn't great for us, we may end up firing above or below them. So just be careful whenever you're charging into multiple enemies at once. This means that you shouldn't have any issues on maps like this. However, let's now take a look at a different map that will actually show you the differences on Arachno on a relatively flat map against one with a lot of hills, as well as some air units included. So let's jump over and let's do some jungle. In the jungle patrol, there is a lot of hills, which is going to make it very difficult for our straight firing Arachno. There's also the helicopters and helibombers that we need to worry about. In most cases, the standard tanks aren't going to prove too much of an issue. We just need to be careful to find ourselves in the right position so that we can take them down. But when it comes to the air units and multiple units at once, we're going to have a little bit more difficulties. So as we move across this map, you'll notice that we have some difficulties in positioning just right with Arachno to get the shots off. Whenever we get a little further into the map, you'll end up coming across a hill and some air units like this. We now find ourselves in a pretty bad spot because we can't really go over the hill because the angle will be bad. We also can't hit the tanks on the other side because our shots are firing straight up. And with the air units, we need them to be in the right spot for us to take advantage of the straight shot of Arachno. So this means that we have to get a little aggressive into the tanks and we have to take some damage if we want to push ahead. One of the other things to note as well is that in this map you don't technically need to kill the air units. You can actually just fire through on the standard tanks to build up the bar and just run past as fast as Arachno will let you of the air units. Because in most cases on terrain like this, we're going to have a hard time being able to take them down. So, what have we learned? Arachno is relatively straightforward. You move slowly, but you hit hard. You can take a decent amount of damage, but of course it's not something you ideally want to do. When going up against air units, it's mostly difficult, but in some cases, like here, you're going to be forced to fight some bosses. Best thing you can do is use the terrain to your advantage. Get on a nice hill that gives you the angle to use your straight shot to take them down. With the slow movement speed, it also means that you're very stable, so you have no worries about rushing and falling over. At the end of the day, terrain practice is going to be key with Arachno, so make sure to put a lot of effort in there. This concludes our first look at Arachno in the Tank Breakdown series. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all the content, follow our social medias to keep up to date with everything Super Plus, and don't forget to join our Discord where you can interact, chat, share fan art, and see other things related to the game. Until the next time, have fun, and we will see you on the hills.